Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. Looky there, I've got a second cast in 1 week. Who would have thunk it? Brink is actually on track to do something. I am thankful that you guys are putting up with me being a little bit busy at this point, what with the move upcoming and all. But I am going to do what I can to get some content out to you guys. The map today is Loki. It is another ladder match between Bloateer and Nexus. I'm finding that these ladder matches are very easy to get out in bite-sized pieces, so you may see a few of them over the next little while. However, they are very good learning experiences. You get to see some high-ranked players play, you get to see their build orders, what they're doing, and hopefully you'll be able to imitate something in your games and maybe pwn some of those people that you're having a little bit of problem with. Bloateer is UEF on the right-hand side in the brilliant red color. This is a bit swapped up, although there isn't a Cybern, so red and blue don't really matter that particularly much. Bloateer is going first land factory, then he is getting a little bit of a selection of mexes and power generators, and going for a second land factory and a third air factory. And you may be wondering, why is he able to build a land factory and an air factory for a total of 3 on 6 P-gens? Well, that is because he has some reclaim going on. We got 2 engineers on attack move orders down here, which will vacuum up some of those trees at a premium of 100 power and 10 mass per clump, which is a fair amount, and it is definitely enough to boost you over what you need. That was a bit of an interesting turn of phrase there. It is going to give you the energy that you need to run those early factories and get those early units out so that hopefully you can overwhelm your opponent. Nexus is doing actually exactly the same thing, except with 1 more power generator, 2 more power generators. He has got 8 scheduled, and then he's got 2 land factories and 1 air factory. Same 2 engineers over here, getting that reclaim, and then we've got 1 brave little NG queued for way the hell too much stuff. I am going to be absolutely amazed if he is able to get all of that under his control. The same set of manual reclaim orders plastered down the sides, and we've got Bloateer queued to run over here, build a factory, and guard this little expansion over here with his commander. As of yet, Nexus does not have a move order placed. Actually, that may be the move order for his commander, but we do not know quite yet. Nope, that is the land factory move order. We'll see where Nexus moves. When you see something like this, when you see 2 opposing players of well over 2,000 rank doing exactly the same thing, it is a good bet that that is an optimized build order. So you can take this to the bank, I guess would be the proper phrase. So Nexus is going to be moving up here to the same spot and building a land factory. What do you know? Exact mirror images. Something that is not a mirror. UEF does not have any hover units at the T1 phase besides the engineer and the amphibious comm. Nexus has access to floaty arty, which could make for some relatively interesting raiding opportunities. And I am a little bit curious as to why Bloateer is going here, because most of the time when I see floaty arty or floaty tanks being a thing, I have seen people run their commander down the backside, grab these 4 mexes with the ACU, and then guard the pass here to prevent any run-bys, or to send all early tanks down here and to try to seize the expansion of their opponent, which is, I'm not sure. I guess this is probably one of the better things because you are preventing these 3 mexes from being killed with your ACU being there and whatnot, but I don't know. We're going to have to see how this plays out and see whether T1 artillery actually does become a thing, because I only see 1 on the field as of yet. A lot of times there's a couple of unprotected engineers over here, and that is a prime target for a T1 bomber or your lovely little hover unit. So there's a couple of tanks over here, which should be countered relatively well by the 3 tanks at Bloateer's disposal. 3 does not sound like much. Actually, there's 4 now. It does not sound like much, but it is a plenty when it is double or triple what your opponent has. That was a sly little move. Nexus put 1 tank right there, and Bloateer killed it, and he took the other tank. Oh my goodness. He is actually going to overcome the odds and kill that expansioneer. That has got to be heartbreaking for Bloateer. That was a critical NG. Yep, there it is. We might get to see a little salt, people. Nexus is definitely happy about that one. Bloodier's got to come back. He walked a little bit to get those units cleaned up. He's going to build that land factory up so that he can get some units out on this side. Meanwhile, Nexus is nailing down this expansion with his totally unharassed engineer, seeing as Bloodier has devoted all of his tanks to the north side. But Bloodier is going to be able to secure that relatively handily. So I think this is in a pretty good position for both of them, other than the fact that Bloodier has to send an engineer way, way out there. He does have an advantage in mass income, though, mainly because he has these mexes where his opponent does not, so that will fade away into obscurity very quickly. Yeah, that is one of the most devastating things when you have an engineer that an entire side of the map is pinned on, and you actually send extra tanks with it to try to protect it, and you think things are going so very well, and then your opponent just kills it. That seems to be what happens to me constantly when I'm trying to play in ladder matches, is I just get harassed to death and can never recover from it. Nexus is doing quite the spam operation over here. He's got a total of 6 land factories already set to go in his base. He has got another one in this little expansion over here, well, on the other side of the hill. Can you call it an expansion when it's within shouting distance of the previous base? I don't know. Game over already because you killed one NG. A lucky raid. It's so dumb. Yes, let the salt flow through you. That's how you get angry, and angry makes you win. Oh, no, wait. It makes you lose concentration. Well, we've got several little raiding things going on. Bloodier down here on this side. I think he is going to have enough tanks to wipe this out. I sure hope he does, because he needs to kill that engineer and that radar. He's got his 2 engineers from up here taking care of the expanding, and that is going to secure him the bottom half, and he has denied the top half to his opponent for quite some time. So we're going to see Bloodier actually not being ahead in mass. We've got a T2 mass extractor over here, and another one halfway upgraded. There is a T2 over here. 2 T2s. So where is Nexus getting his extra? Nope, he's not. 37 and 37. Yes, that is due to some reclaim fluctuations. Bloodier definitely has more income. All right, Bloodier cleaning up the last of that, sinking Nexus even further into the dust behind him. Nexus pushing his commander up here to try to secure that, and we finally got some tanks and artillery around to this side. Bloodier neglecting his micro over there. He probably could have taken this task force out had he moved his tanks before he lost a couple to the artillery. I don't know. We may never know for sure since he did not. Bloodier going to lose a couple of mass extractors over here to a little run by from Nexus. Not very many tanks, but just enough to kill a couple of mass extractors. And it looks like Bloodier is taking good advantage of that extra income. He has already dropped a T2 land factory, pushing out a pillar, and that is going to easily wipe the floor with all these T1 units on this side. Already has 2 more pillars on the way over here. Those are going to run into the ACU, though, and not be much good. So we've got a couple of T2 engineers out for Nexus, who has also dropped the T2 factory, and he is going to build power immediately. Nexus is running 560, Bloodier 480, and I am curious, Nexus, you have a grand total of 15 interceptors to 11 for Bloodier. Typically, when people go for a higher power build, they tend to build more air. It's always, I don't know, I like to see trends in play. Sometimes you can kind of guess where players are going based on what they're building, and since we got 2 air factories over here, excuse me, 2 air factories, quite heavy assistance, and a T2 power generator going up, I would assume that Nexus is about to make an air play. We might get to see some bombers or perhaps even some gunships. Who really knows? T1 point defense going down right there, just in case a little run-by sneaks through. Those engineers won't be totally helpless, although I'm kind of curious as to why you're building the radar in front of the point defense. That makes no sense whatsoever, good sir. I would think that you would build the radar like back here somewhere, where it would be much more protected from the units that might come in. T1 bomber playing the hero, taking out a couple of tanks. But there are 2 pillars there, as I mentioned before. They're going to come on down here and run into a T1 point defense, which I don't think they are equipped to handle. So those are going to die horribly painful deaths. T1 point defense is going to be the hero of the day, and save this expansion. Here comes T1 bombers, cleaning up the mess, and that, as they say, is that. Blodir, not quite running away with the eco anymore. He's at 51, and Nexus is at 49, popping back and forth with the reclaim, of course. So running neck and neck. Let's check out the reclaim here. 6,500 for Nexus and 3,600 for Blodir. So that does give a little bit of an advantage to Nexus, but not to a tremendous degree. Blodir does have a T2P gen up, so they're running neck and neck in power as well as in mass. And it looks like Ilshivas are getting assisted, and Air does not have as much assistance as I thought he was going to put on it just a few minutes ago. He may have been trying to pump out those T1 bombers with all that extra assistance in order to deal with the land threat, which would make tons of sense. So at the moment, Blodir is running with 18 interceptors as opposed to 22 for Nexus. So Nexus still outpacing him in production just a teensy little bit. On this side, we've got some T1 facing off versus the commander, which I think is going for T2. Does he have? Yes! Upgrading to T2. I do so dearly love it when people run notification mod, because it makes it so much easier for people like me who are trying to cast the games. Got a pillar over here, ACU retreating, and I am really not sure why, although there are more pillars coming from this side. Nexus should have overcharge. No, he does not. Why does he not have an energy storage? That seems extremely silly, although Blodir does not either. So I suppose they have both come to the conclusion that energy storage is not worth the price that you pay for it, and I would tend to disagree. The brave little Ilshiva trying to fight off some of those pillars. As long as he can keep range on it, he will be successful, but we all know that kiting is a bit of an issue when you're a slower unit. All those pillars have to do is rush in. They will absolutely own that single Ilshiva, although it does not look like that happened. There isn't a point defense over here, and I think Blodir knows that. He should. Yes, he has scouts and or radar. That would definitely be scouts. So he is able to see what's going on over there, and he finally moves in to take the expansion. That puts him ahead by 4 or so income, 6 total once that other gets cleaned up. We do have a nice little group of Ilshivas on this side. There are enough units to stop it, but Blodir is having to shift a little bit. I like this triad down here guarding the corner. Nexus is fleeing in the face of some units that I don't think... Ah, there he is. He must have finally built an E storage when he started losing that corner. So he is able to overcharge a couple of units there, a pillar and a T1 unit. Or, yes, that is the correct statement, I think. Yes, pillars are T2, strikers are T1. It is amazing how rusty you get at this when you don't cast on a consistent basis. Still brushing the rust off, as some would say. So Blodir getting another upgrade here. Probably gun. I would think gun. It is upgrading quite quickly. Yes, that was gun. So he is going to be able to wade through those Ilshivas without much of a problem. And now that he has overcharged Nexus, even on the unupgraded commander, is going to be able to push away those tanks. Blodir running at 61 mass per tick and 55 for Nexus. So Nexus just a tiny little bit behind. 10,000, almost 11,000 reclaim. Oh, versus 43. Holy kashmolis, that is more than making up for the eco difference. Nexus, in fact, jumping ahead in score with the reclamation of those mass extractors. There's a fair amount of flak over here. There is a T2 transport bringing in a pair of pillars, which is a little bit of an interesting choice. I would imagine that he is going to drop those right back here, but that is right next to interceptors. Nexus has scouted it. He's going to make that turn perfectly, and down goes the transport. It was a nice idea. I like Blodir's thought there. That definitely could have caused some damage, but unfortunately, it was not meant to be. Just got to be careful where you stick those interceptors, but with all that flak going on. Because all it takes is one little flight over that, and you are doomed. Blodir pushing up. He's got the T2 and the gun, which makes that a tough bastard of a commander. Gonna shove all those Ilshivas back up into the base. Still being pumped out by the factory. No T3 as of yet for this player. But Blodir is about to start rocking and rolling with some Percivals. He doesn't really have any assistance on that. And he has fallen behind in economy. Really now. But he is going to get to T3 first, and his T3 is significantly stronger than his opponent's is. So he is going to do just fine, I think, building a triad, a T1 point defense, and another triad queued. You'll notice that this is not a committed fire base. He is building it in a choke point. It is 3-point defense, and he is backing it up with his mobile units. So this is basically a strong point that he can fall back to. It is not a commitment of resources in trying to hole his opponent up. So I like this kind of thing. It really does do well when you just have a couple of point defense here or there. It just gives you, like I said, something to fall back to. If you start having an engagement go badly, you can just retreat a little bit and start doing some damage to your opponent without having to risk your units. But in response to that, this is how easy it is to counter. Nexus is just standing right, well, in range. I didn't think he was going to push up that far, but he does have some mobile missile launchers, which are going to quite easily take out the triad. It just takes a matter of seconds, especially when you're adding to your volley and the Ilshiva's arm moving in. Now that, I think, was a bad choice, because there's a lot of pillars over here. How much of that does he have on radar? All of it? That was the wrong... Yes, he has all of it on radar, or he's pinging air scouts. That's what it is. So he can see what's going on. That was a little bit of an overcommitment of the Ilshivas, but I think he's in a fine position now. There's not enough pillars left to take on that many Ilshis, although he is trying to push back the mobile missile launchers, get those away from his beloved little fire base, and he's going to rebuild the point defense. I don't know that I would go that far, although if your opponent doesn't have radar, then you wouldn't know that those were there. That might be his master plan. I don't know how Bloater knows that he doesn't have radar, but Nexus doesn't have radar, and that will go quite well for him. That is going to be a hard loss. We got a T2 radar system that just went down right there, and we've got a joining of forces to take out this section. Bloater also upgrading the TAC launcher. That's going to make this interesting, because if he has the power to maintain that, he's at 1.7k, stalling mass, stalling power, but not wrecking his economy. If he's able to bring that up and sustain it, this is going to be a fun time. There's also a T3 land factory, so that would be an awesome. The awful Autumn is not so awful when there is no T3 to oppose it. But there's T3 on the north side that is gradually eating into his economy. Percival's actually do quite well versus T1 point defense. I think they can shoot over the walls just a little bit. Nope. I don't think so. But the pillars are making it through the wall sections, so that point defense is going to die, and that is the end of that. T2 transport, ACU jumping on board. Looks like he's going to come over this way and attempt to do some damage, but he's a little shy of running into that anti-air, so he's going to drop right there. Autumn engaging against all of this T1. It's just going to be able to mop up those tanks with its longer range guns. Of course, once you get into range, it does well over double the damage, but it can kite out any T1 unit with that longer gun. Upgrading T2 on Nexus's comm. He does not have any upgrades at all, so that's interesting. Getting right up there next to your opponent and then choosing to upgrade. I wonder why. So T2 shield going up. We got T2 point defense down. This is going to be relatively secure against the couple of Percivals that are up. Please get that up. Yes, got it up before the killing shot came in on that point defense. That is going to do very well against that Percival, but all of these units here are going to collapse it. Carrying an Autumn over there to save the day. Maybe it'll be enough, but somehow I doubt it. Nexus has broken the back of Bloatier's army, and after all of those Bs, he's going to move forward into the expansion of that away. Hopefully he'll be able to knock out some of that economy that is giving Bloatier such an edge in this game. And there goes the base. Mr. Autumn was not enough. He is fighting valiantly. Already got 10 vets, 10 kills under his belt. That Percival will end him if he does not retreat. Well done, good sir. Retreat to fight another day. I don't blame you. Bloatier still not assisting, but he's got many support factories. We've got 4 factories total building Percivals, which are rolling them off at a relatively good pace. And then he is building Janus, which we got to check out the air situation here again, just to keep tabs. We got 69 interceptors. I wonder if he stopped building specifically on that on purpose. And then we've got 63. But some of those are out of fuel, so air advantage Bloateer. And remember, the fighter bombers are not something that you want to build if you're going for air superiority. But if you do have to fight with a bomber, the Janus is the best one. It has the best anti-air per mass of any of the fighter bombers. The short answer to the air dilemma, though, is to always build interceptors unless you have a T3 factory. Oh, that is a lot of interceptors chasing a transport. Please drop. That's so much mass. Okay, whew. 2 Othams made it to the ground, just barely. All right, the TAC launcher on the commander is wreaking a fair bit of havoc. That is not a pretty sight when you start taking damage on your HQ. That second missile is not going to finish off the air factory. Interesting. But another missile coming in, and oh, it's safe again. I don't think it'll be safe from the next one, though. Incoming. Oh, it wasn't aimed at that. And the TAC defense is up. Okay. Wow, that was close. Just about lost one of his greatest assets there. The armies that just finished ravaging the north side are now moving to the south. Bloateer has taken a decisive lead in this, and Nexus is going to have to do something grand if he's going to be able to win this. He is walking his ACU to the front, got the T2, got the gun upgrade. He's pushing Othams into the water, which do not do much torpedo damage, but they do some. And of course, they're able to hit with their main guns as well. Gonna bring all those tanks down in here and I guess attempt to force Bloateer out of the water? No, no way. No way. There are so many tanks, but so little damage. Bloateer deciding to get the hell out of Dodge anyway. He's bringing all of his interceptors over to guard that T2 transport that has just dropped off a couple more Percivals. Looks like the ACU is coming into the water here. There's enough Othams there. Why are you getting out of the water, Bloateer? That's actually enough to kill you. But there are Percivals. So here it is. To end the fight, we've got T3 versus ACU and T3 versus ACU. Percivals firing down the Othams. Those Othams trying to focus fire the ACU, but there's only 3 left. Nexus down to 2,700 health. And he goes, boom. Bloateer getting out unscathed. Bloateer for the win. Risky, risky, Nexus says. I think that was actually what tipped the balance of the game, because this was a close one. Bloateer and Nexus ran absolutely neck and neck almost through the entire game. We're talking tied mass income and tied power, and Nexus had the advantage in reclaim. However, those Percivals are bad news. Seraphim is not very good in the later T3 stages. And those Percivals came out soon enough and in just great enough quantity to stop the march of the Othams. Bloateer was able to hold ground versus the superior Ilshivas just long enough to get those things out. And overall, both these guys played pretty dang well. But like I said, that TAC launcher in the pond right here did a pretty horrific amount of damage to this base, forcing Nexus into a defensive posture. And while it may have already been rolling that way slowly but recoverable, that definitely put Nexus in the hole. Alrighty guys, hopefully you learned something on that. Like I said, I am very interested in watching the higher ranked replays, even though a lot of them are a little bit more grindy. You don't see any spectacular plays. It is a good learning experience. Hopefully we can all pick something up from this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.